Hi everyone, welcome to our last lesson before you write your chemistry paper tomorrow. So this lesson is just going to be a recap of all the theory we've done since chemistry is so heavy with theory. So the plan for the lesson is we're just going to spend some time going over the first bit of theory we did when we started. We'll follow that up by doing a few exam questions, reviewing the ones we have done and what's important for you to remember in your paper. And then we'll also review the theory on intermolecular forces and the second set of slides we've done. So the first thing we're going to start off with is this periodic table. So just reminding ourselves that whenever you get your periodic table, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to label your valency numbers at the top of your columns. Okay, so remembering how we do that on screen, we can see that we label 0 on the right hand side and then our negative numbers and the plus from the right hand side. Let's just recap what does the negative and the plus means. So we remember that negative means that this element or this atom basically wants to take electrons from another atom, and we know that a plus means that it wants to give away its electrons. Okay. We also understand the concept of what valency is. Valency basically tells us how many electrons an atom wants to give away or wants to take in order for it to become stable. Okay, we remember our basic structure of filling up the shells in an atom, remembering that there is a nucleus at the center of an atom, and followed by that is all our electrons that exist on the outer side of this nucleus. Those electrons exist in something we call shells. So if this is the nucleus at the center here, this is called a shell, and our electrons are going to basically be stuck to that shell. But they basically arrange themselves in a very specific way, where shell 1 can only take up to 2 electrons, shell 2 can take up to 8 electrons, and shell 3 can also take up to 8 electrons. So your job is being able to remember shell 1 can take 2 electrons, shell 2 can take 8 electrons, and shell 3 can take 8 electrons as well. Once you understand that, we basically did a few examples where we actually labeled or we've done the shell structure for a few atoms. For instance, if you look at this example, we've got carbon, and the main thing as well for you is being able to read from your periodic table how many electrons do we have. So when we see this, for instance, we've got carbon here and the number above carbon is 6. That 6 is the atomic number. An atomic number tells us how many protons are in the element. But we know from last year that an atom always has the same number of protons and electrons. So if carbon has 6 protons, then we know that it also has 6 electrons. So we now know that carbon has 6 electrons, and we start by filling our shells. The basic rules we've learned is we always fill from the center going outward. So here you can see what this looks like. While we're here, we're just going to talk basically about valency. Remember that valency is kind of guiding the process of how atoms bond together. But from valency, we get this concept called valence electrons. And valence electrons is a description of how many electrons are in the outermost shell of the element. So how you find out your valence electrons is you go to your outermost shell and you basically count your electrons there. So for instance, when we're looking at this example here, if we go to the outermost shell, we're looking at this shell here, and we can see that we've got 4 electrons. So what we can say from here is carbon has 4 valence electrons, right? That's an important step because eventually after all of this, we came to talk about something called, just getting the slide open, we talked about something called a Lewis diagram. Okay, I'm just going to make this full screen.